Tunisia sits at the northern tip of Africa, bordered by Algeria to the west, Libya to the southeast, and the Mediterranean Sea to the north and northeast. Though small in size, its strategic location has made it a vital crossroads for trade, empire, and revolution throughout history. But the chapter that would define its modern trajectory began in 1881, after Ottoman administration, when France declared a protectorate over the territory. Unlike Algeria, which was fully colonized and treated as an extension of France, Tunisia's colonization was framed through a treaty with the ruling Bey. The Bey of Tunis remained in place as a symbolic figurehead, and local institutions were superficially maintained. Yet, true power passed into the hands of the French resident general, who governed with near total authority and oversight. Under this new regime, Tunisia saw significant infrastructural development as new railways connected inland regions to Mediterranean ports. This fostered the expansion of phosphate mines in Gafsa, accompanied with a boom in agricultural export from the Fata Majada Valley. As a common theme identified across Africa during this time, it was the European settlers who increasingly monopolized land ownership, while native Tunisians were pushed to the economic margins. With time, a growing dissent started to brew between the natives and the locals. Most notably, a group called the Young Tunisians, made up of Western-educated elites, emerged in the 1890s. They called for modest reform and constitutional rights, using publications like Le Tunisien to spread their message. This set the stage for the Destor Party, who formed in 1920 to advocate for self-rule and legal equality. Despite effort from the French to arrest and censor their movement, their momentum only grew stronger. A defining moment came in 1934, when a bold and charismatic young lawyer named Habib Bourguiba broke from the original Destor to form the Neo-Destor Party. Bourguiba transformed Tunisian nationalism from an elite movement into a mass campaign. Through speeches, newspapers, and relentless activism, his message resonated across classes and regions. He faced imprisonment, exile, and surveillance, yet the Neo-Destor's influence only strengthened. France, reeling from wars in Indochina and Algeria, was under pressure to reconsider its colonial policies. Furthermore, Libya's independence and Egyptian revolution helped to accelerate the urge for independence. In 1954, French Prime Minister Pierre Mendès France agreed to grant Tunisia autonomy. Bourguiba accepted limited self-rule, but this sparked internal dissent. Salah Ben Youssef, a more radical nationalist leader, rejected the compromise as a betrayal. A couple years later, on March 20, 1956, Tunisia gained full independence. Bourguiba became prime minister and by July 1957, abolished the monarchy, declaring the Republic of Tunisia and assuming the presidency. His early years were marked by a rapid modernization agenda. He prioritized secular education, expanded public healthcare, and introduced the groundbreaking Code of Personal Status, banning polygamy, enabling civil marriage, and granting women new legal rights. These reforms placed Tunisia at the forefront of gender progress in the Arab world. However, Bourguiba's state building came at the cost of democratic development. During this time, after a brief armed resistance and exile, Ben Youssef was assassinated in 1961, clearing the way for Bourguiba to consolidate power. The Neo-Destor Party became the sole legal political force, and dissent was increasingly suppressed. In the 1960s, under Minister of Planning Ahmed Ben Salah, Tunisia adopted socialist economic policies, including agricultural collectivization and nationalization of key industries. Initial optimism gave way to economic insufficiencies, rural unrest, and widespread dissatisfaction. By the early 1970s, the government abandoned socialism in favor of economic liberalization. Tunisia opened its markets, encouraged foreign investment, and rapidly developed its tourism sector. Yet, these policies deepened regional inequalities between coastal and inland areas. Then came the big announcement. In 1975, Bourguiba was declared president for life. As he aged, his grip tightened and his decisions grew erratic. Meanwhile, A new ideological force emerged: political Islam. The Islamic tendency movement, which would later become Ennahda, challenged the state's secular identity. The regime responded with harsh repression. By the 1980s, rising inflation, unemployment, and crackdowns on Islamists created national tension. The infamous bread riots of 1984 exposed deep social grievances. On November 7, 1987, in a bloodless coup, Prime Minister Zine El Abidine Ben Ali removed Bourguiba from power on the grounds of mental incapacity. Initially hailed as a modernizer and a reformer, Ben Ali promised democratic reforms, national reconciliation, and economic opportunity. His early moves, freeing political prisoners and easing press restriction, sparked hope, but the hope quickly faded. Ben Ali entrenched himself through a sophisticated authoritarian model. Elections continued but were heavily manipulated. He routinely won with over 90% of the vote. Opposition parties were co-opted or outlawed, surveillance expanded, civil society was stifled, and freedom of expression was tightly controlled. Tunisia gained international praise for its stability and development, yet, behind the facade was a system riddled with corruption, cronyism, and widening inequality. Youth unemployment surged, particularly in rural areas. Soon, the discontent reached a boiling point, because in December 2010, a revolutionary event took place that would change not only Tunisia, but the Arab world itself. Mohamed Bouazizi, a street vendor in the impoverished town of Sidi Bouzid, set himself on fire in protest of harassment by municipal officials. His desperate act ignited a nationwide uprising. Protests erupted across Tunisia, demanding jobs, justice, and dignity. Despite attempts to de-escalate the situation, nothing could stop the events that were set to take place. On January 14, 2011, Ben Ali fled the country, ending his 23-year rule. This set the stage for the infamous Arab Spring that toppled several leaders in the region. Following this, Tunisia's democratic transition began with a cautious optimism. A constituent assembly was elected to draft a new constitution. In 2014, Tunisia adopted a progressive charter guaranteeing civil liberties, gender equality, and political pluralism. Elections were held, bringing a peaceful transfer of power. Ennahda, now a moderate Islamist party, shared governance with secular parties like Nida Tunes. The National Quartet, a coalition of civil society organizations, helped navigate moments of intense political crisis, winning the Nobel Peace Prize in 2014.
And helping Palestinians to achieve self-determination. The members of the quartet were presented with a diploma and medals for the role they played in Tunisia's peaceful transition to democracy in the birthplace of the Arab Spring.
Yet, Tunisia's democratic gains did not resolve its economic insufficiencies. The 2014 terrorist attacks at Bardo Museum and Sousse devastated tourism, one of the country's leading sectors. In 2019, Kais Saied, a constitutional law professor with no political affiliation, won the presidency in a landslide. He promised to clean up politics, restore national pride, and deliver justice. In 2021, amid worsening economic and political paralysis, he suspended parliament, dismissed the government, and assumed emergency powers. Supporters saw him as a savior, whilst critics accused him of authoritarian overreach. In 2022, Saied pushed through a new constitution expanding presidential powers and weakening parliamentary oversight. Opposition parties boycotted the vote, leading to low turnout. The judiciary, media, and civil society began to face mounting pressure. Journalists were detained, judges were purged, and political dissenters were arrested. The economic situation deteriorated, subsidy cuts and growing debt exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine further saw the nation plummet. By 2024, Tunisia found itself at a critical point. The democratic promise of 2011 appeared to be slipping away, while civil space narrowed and international concerns grew louder. Despite these challenges, the spirit of the Tunisian revolution still lives on.